Hi everyone, welcome to Ranmalee Teacher's History class. Today we are going to start the grade 8 lesson. Now I already uploaded grade 6 to grade 11 lessons. So if you want to join to my classes, please subscribe my channel and press the bell icon. Then you will get every new video I uploaded. Today we are going to start the lesson 1.1 Water Technology. Traditional technologies and arts of Sri Lanka. Water technology. We all know ancient Sri Lankans, their main livelihood was farming. So, people who lived in certain period of time in the history of this country, in order to get their needs fulfilled, tanks, canals, dams, ponds are constructed to get water. The technology that were adapted in doing such constructions can simply be called as water technology. The ancient Lankans knew how to apply such technologies perfectly well in constructing tanks, canals, dams and anicuts. Beginning of the construction of tanks. So you can see the tank here and the paddy fields, here the village. So all are got together. They need water for their farming. Beginning of the construction of tanks. Tanks and anicuts were first constructed in dry zone in order to obtain water required for the agriculture activities of the people who settled in the earliest villages established in our country before the era of Christ. A rapid expansion in the establishment of settlements in this country with the arrival of groups of people from India around 6th century BC. The first people who arrived to Sri Lanka, King Vijaya, after that King Pandavasdev, Princess Padaka, China, like that. A lot of Indians came to our country during this 6th century BC. When establishing their settlements, they selected the dry zone, where the land is mostly plain and highly fertile, and therefore is most suitable for the agricultural activities. The dry zone of this country received rain only during a certain period of time of the year. For this reason, the people of that time had the need for storing water that was required for their consumption and for agricultural activities during the dry season. It was to fulfill this need that people started constructing tanks. After about 3rd century BC, there occurred a rapid growth in the expansion of settlements in the dry zone. The people of that time faced the challenge of increasing the food production in order to cater to the need of increasing population. They constructed giant tanks and connected those tanks through the canals, creating a network of irrigation system. Bring many of these eras under the paddy field cultivation. So you can see the dry zone here and the wet zone. So this dry zone get water in certain time periods. Wet zone get water every time of the year, every month of the year. Wet zone get rainwater. Construction of dams across the brook of the stream so that water is collected there is the origin of constructing small tanks. So normally the river is flowing. If there is two mountains together, two stones together, they use those mountains at the geographical location and constructed a dam across the river. So the water is collected. After that, they used to fill that water into a tank. So that is the beginning of the construction of small tanks. Selecting an area of land of which their sites were bought with the high and land by constructing bund across the low-lying land of the other side so that rainwater is collected there. As a lot of labor was not needed for such small constructions, members of a family or a village could get together and construct a small tank. Small tanks were constructed by the villagers themselves under the leadership of the head of the village. They are called village tanks. They are mentioned in the stone inscription. Some village tanks which are not spoken in literary sources, such as Mahavansa. As king began to involve in constructing tanks, those are bigger tanks which had more capacity than village tanks, could be constructed because kings could collect more people than village heads. By about 3rd century BC, construction of large tanks began. Mahavansa speaks of 3 tanks that had been constructed during the reign of King Pandukabaya. They had been called Jayavapi, Abhayavapi, Gamini Vapi. It is believed that the tank presently called Basavakulama was then Abhayavapi. Tisaveva in Anuradhapura considered that Tisaveva was constructed by King Devanam Piyatissa. Basavakulama and Tisaveva are seen in present status after being renovated on several occasions. So you can see the Basavakulama Veva here. It is constructed by King Pandukabaya. At that time it is known as Abhayaveva. This is Tisaveva, constructed by King Devanam Piyatissa. Construction of big tanks. Constructing of big tanks was started several centuries after the establishment of the first villages in ancient Sri Lanka. It was King Vasamba who ruled the country during the period of 67 to 111 AD who first started constructing big tanks in this country. By this time, Lankans had acquired a knowledge about irrigation technology. During King Vasamba's reign, settlements spread in most parts of the dry zone. With the expansion of settlements, production of food had to be increased in order to provide for the increasing population. Construction of big tanks seems to have started at this time in addition to smaller tanks in order to fulfill these requirements. A large amount of water could be stored consequent to the construction of big tanks, and the water thus stored could be distributed to the small and medium scale tanks through the canals. Chronicles have recorded King Vasabha had constructed 11 tanks. Mayet Wever, presently known as Mahavilachya Wever, and Manikivti or Mahanikavati Wever, presently known as Manakatiya Wever, are examples for tanks that have been identified so far constructed by King Vasabha. So you can see the Manakatiya Wever. It is a large tank. King Mahasen, 274 to 301 AD, is a prominent among kings who constructed big tanks after King Vasabha. According to Mahavansa, King Mahasen has constructed 1,000 tanks. Minihera, presently known as Minneriya Wever, was constructed by King Mahasen. Jaluravapi, presently called Hurulu Wever, and Kanuvapi, presently known as Mahakanadara Wever, are examples for other tanks constructed by King Mahasen. So, because of the great work he have done, the biggest Minneriya tank was built by him. He was known as God of Minneri at that time. In Sinhala, he is known as Minneriya Deyu. King Dhatusena, 450 to 473 AD, is another prominent king who have constructed large-scale tanks during Anuradhapura kingdom. He had constructed 18 tanks. Out of the tanks constructed by him, the outstanding one was Kala Wever. You can see the Minneriya Wever here. It is a big tank. And the Kala Wever constructed by King Dhatusena. Kala Wever was built by constructing a dam across the Kala Oya. Chronicles also recorded that tanks such as Pandulakavapi, Mahadatavapi, which were constructed by King Dhatusena. Mahadatavapi is presently known as Mahadatugama Wever. Mahadatugama Wever, situated close to the Dambulla Kakirava area. Pandulakavapi has not been identified yet. The greatest king who have constructed lot of tanks and make our Sri Lanka proud was King Parakramabahu I. He is very important among the other kings who constructed large-scale tanks during the Rajarata civilization. His motto was, "Not a single drop of water received from the rain should be allowed to flow into the sea without making any use of it." He rendered a valuable service towards development of irrigation sector of this country. According to Mahavansa, he has constructed 163 tanks, including the famous Parakrama Samudra in Polonnaruwa. So at that time, our Sri Lanka was known as Granary of the East because he had maintained large scale of agriculture at that time. We are able to provide rice to the other Asian countries at that time. So Rajarata civilizations collapsed. Collapsed means already destroyed. in 1215 AD, following the invasion of Kalinga Maga, which was launched towards the end of the Polonnaruwa kingdom. After the collapse of the Rajarata civilization, most of the people began to move towards the wet zone. So, the building tanks and anicuts in Rajarata area began to be overgrown with the wild. It became a forest. Those all the tanks, nobody have looked after those things. So you can see the Parakrama Samudra and the statue of King Parakram Bahuan. Achievements of Lankans' conquest of construction of large tanks. So what are the benefits acquired by the Sri Lankans when they are constructing the large tanks we are going to talk about? As a huge volume of water could be stored in a large tanks, shortage of water could be minimized even during the prolonged of drought. So during the drought season also there is no problem. There are water contained in the large tanks. Small tanks could be provided with the water from the large scale tanks through the canals. So if any village needed water, so they can send the water through the canals. Floods could be controlled because of the large scale tanks. With the construction of large scale tanks, the technology of constructing long canals developed. So I told you earlier also, these large scale tanks provide water to the small tanks. So to take the water they have constructed canals. So the technology of this building canals also developed at that time. Challenges confronted and the technologies adopted in constructing tanks. So they have faced a lot of challenges when they are constructing large scale tanks. It is not easy task to construct a tank and to make use of it with proper maintenance. Constructing a large scale tank is a complex process which should be carried out of very high standard according to the proper plan through the understanding. A large scale tank is a vast reservoir which holds a huge volume of water which is at least 20 to 30 feet high and spread over areas of thousands of acres. As the height of the volume of water increased, the water pressure extended on the dam too increased. Many people live in downstream areas of tanks and there also are cultivations. Therefore, it is essential that very strong dam is constructed to very high standard. So you can see in this graph the min area tank, the length of the dam 1¼ miles. The height of the dam 44 feet. Area that gets underwater arcs 4,670. However, length of the dam 3 4/3. Then the height of the dam 40 feet. The area that get underwater 6,380. Parakrama Samudra, the length of the dam 8½ miles. Height of the dam 40 feet. Areas that get under the water 5,300 acres. So you can understand how large it is. you can gain some understanding about the massiveness of the large-scale tanks by studying the figures given above table. Ancient Lankans confronted various challenges in constructing such giant tanks. When constructing a tank, the most suitable place of the river or the stream had to be selected for building the dam. When selecting the location, mostly a land in a narrow river valley with two mountain ranges on either side was selected, and a dam was constructed across the river joining the two mountain ranges together. When selecting such location, they must have taken in a particular consideration the height of the location, the condition of the mountain ranges are either side of the river, and as to how the tank would be connected to the other tanks and irrigation network. So all the things they have to identify. A major challenge that the builders of the tanks confronted was design the dam so that it can withstand the pressure extended by the volume of the water collected in the tank in order to prevent the dam of carving in. The topsoil of the relevant area is removed up to the bedrock, and then it is filled with the layer of soil of the different types. When building up the dam with such layer of soil, the soil was pressed hard so that absorption of the water by the soil is minimum, and the dam is strong enough to withstand water pressure. It is also clear that the width of the dam was determined based on height of the length of the dam. Another challenge that was encountered when constructing a dam was find the labor required for that. Thousands of workers had to be deployed for the several years in order to build up a dam about 30 to 40 feet high over the several miles by way of filling soil. It is really wonderful that such mammoth tasks had been fulfilled accurately with the human labor so long ago, unlike this in the present day, where the modern machinery is used to do such heavy work. When constructing dams and canals, proper plan and good organizing skills were needed in order to carry out various tasks, such as finding required labor, maintaining the workers, providing food for the workers, carrying the soil, building up dam by presenting soil hard. The giant tanks we see today give evidence to the fact that ancient Lankans have succeeded in overcoming all those challenges. Such challenges encountered in the constructing maintenance of the tanks, various features of the tanks such as sluice, biseaucourt, and the breakwater, inner spill and the outer spill were created. So those are the technology of the tank, the way that they have controlled the pressure of the water, the way that they have the breakwater or all those things are secure, give lot of security to the dam. So like that, the technology they have adopted is marvelous. The sluice. The sluice was created for the purpose of letting out through the dam into the canal the water that is stored in the tank, extending, that means minimizing a very high pressure on the dam. Most tanks have two sluices, namely the upper sluice and the bottom sluice. The bottom sluice is constructed at the bottom of the level of the tank so that the water stored in the tank can be let out into the valley. This also helps discipline the tank. That means it controls the water pressure of the tank. The upper sluice is constructed a little above the level of the bottom sluice. In smaller tanks, Bisokoto has not been constructed and water is let out through the sluice itself. So it controls the pressure of the smaller tanks. So at that time, the Bisokoto was not constructed. Right, you can see the Bisokoto now. So it is the marvelous technology of the dam. So you can see the function of the Bisokoto. This is the dam. So this is the bridge. The people can come through the dam and go through this bridge. And this is the water level controller. So if they want to let the water out, or if they want to take the water in, they have to use this water controller level, and this is the gate that let the water in or out. So this well is known as Bisokotua. So this door is moved up and down with the lever. So this is the inner tunnel, inner gate. This is the inner gate. So this is the outer gate. So you can see the outer tunnel also. So this is the Bisokoto that controls the pressure of the water of the tank. Bisokoto has been constructed in order to let out the water stored in the tank with the proper regulation. Bisokoto is a part of the sluice itself. The big tanks with the several sluices, there also are an equal number of Bisokoto. Bisokoto is constructed in a square shape of inside the tank very close to the dam. The water enters the Bisokoto through the tunnel. Inside the Bisokoto, there is a door that can be moved up and down, and water can be released into the outlet tunnel with the proper control by moving the door as required. Bisokoto is considered to be a unique invention, that Lankan irrigation technology. So this is the most valuable technology that founded in the tank. Breakwater. This breakwater is constructed to give make a strong dam. So the soil won't wash away from with the water. So when the water comes near the dam, the soil never comes out because of the breakwater. The inside of the dam has been constructed laying stone on the surface in order to prevent the dam from being washed away into the tank. Tank is called the breakwater. This is called the breakwater. Small waves are created on the surface of the water due to the wind. Then these waves hit the surface of the dam. Unseeingly, there is a risk of the dam being washed away into the tank. Therefore, the breakwater is essential in order to protect the dam. So, there is no soil erosion when the breakwater is there from the dam. Inner spill and outer spill. The inner spill has been constructed for the purpose of obtaining water for the tank from some other source of water. A small pit has been constructed so that silt that is carried with the water from the outside is deposited there, preventing from the entering to the tank. When the flow of water from the outside stopped, this pit can be distilled. The outer spill has been constructed for the purpose of letting the excess water out. A big tank can be constructed with the two outer spills. So, this outer spill and inner spill are connected to the contour. So, if they want to control the pressure of the water pressure of the tank, so the excess water has removed through this outer spill. Inner spill take water inside the tank. Technology applied in constructing canals and dams. A bund that is constructed across the canals, stream of rivers blocking the flow of water in order to divert from some of that water to the paddy field is known as an anicut. A bund of this nature is called a dam. Accordingly, the dam mostly refers to be a bund that is constructed for a retraining water. Retrain means collecting water. Through the experience that was gained by constructing such dams across the stream at the earlier stage of irrigation works in ancient Sri Lankans, the technology for constructing huge dams across the river and streams was developed in giant tanks were constructed. There had been two types of dams, namely makeshift dam and permanent dam. When the current of the river and streams minimized after the rainy season had ended, makeshift dams were constructed by way of standing wooden poles across the current and blocking the flow of water with the small branches of trees, mud and sand. The objective of constructing such makeshift dams was obtaining water that was needed for the nearby paddy fields during that season or that year. Such dams not destroyed as the next rainy season. So, when the rainy season began, those dams were destroyed because the water current is very high. So, those are impermanent dams, makeshift dams. Permanent dams have been constructed in very stable way so that they last long time period. It is common feature that bunds have been constructed using blocks of stones so that dam is strong enough to withstand the water pressure and it is protected from the soil erosion. When constructing a dam, the foundation has been joined to the natural rock plane or to the bedrock by removing the top layer of the soil. Tekkam Anicut that has been constructed across the Malwatu Oya close to the Vauniava and Mena main junction is a fine example for an ancient anicut with a stable permanent bund. Water was carried over distance for about 17 miles up to the Yodaweber in Mena through the canal that being from this anicut. So you can see the Tekkam Anicut that has been constructed by building up a dam on a natural rock plain in Malwatu Oya, and how the anicut overflows after it has been filled with the water. So through this anicut, the water is taken to the Yodaweber. Construction of canals. Water has been carried from the small tanks to anicuts to the farmlands through the short canals. Later, with the advancement of technology of constructing bigger anicuts and giant tanks, the technology of constructing wider and longer canals too developed. According to Mahavansa, King Basamba has constructed 11 tanks. And 12 canals. But it has been recorded by namely only Alahara Ala. A dam was built across the Abanganga and Alahara was constructed from there over a distance of 30 miles in order to carry water to the northern part of the country. King Mahasen constructed a canal named Talavatuka or Talavatu Ela for the purpose of obtaining water for the Minneria tank. You can see the Alahara Anicut. King Dhatusena constructed a canal named Jayaganga or Yoda Ela in order to carry water from Kalawewa to Tisaweva in Anuradhapura. Yoda Ela is 54 miles long. Certain portions of it are about 40 feet wide. Minipela was constructed by King Akabodhi I. To carry water from Mahaveli is another fine example that displays the great skill of constructing canals in Anuradhapura, Gujarat. Requirements for the constructing canals. To carry water from the tanks or anicuts to the farmland. So, purpose of making tanks was collect the water for the agriculture, so they have to provide water to the farmlands. Through the canals, they have they have provide water to the farmlands through the canals. To carry water from an anicut or tank system. So when the dam is built across a river, then when the water is collected also, they use canals to take water to the tanks. To carry water from tank to another tank or several other tanks. So it is a good example. Earlier also I told you King Dhatusena constructed the canal named Yodala in order to carry water from Kalawewa to Tisaweva in Anuradhapura. So this yodala is used to fill 2 tanks. So like that, they have used these canals to travel the water. You can see the yodala here. Technology applied in constructing canals and the challenges confronted. The ancient Lankans connected tanks and anicuts through the canals and created an irrigation network in dry zone. They also succeeded in carrying water over miles and miles through the canals from areas where the water was abundant of the areas where the water was scarce. So this, however, the sources of available in this country do not provide sufficient information about these canals, how these canals were constructed, or about the difficulties these constructed people face. So somehow some understanding about the technology constructing canals and the bunds and that time has to be gained by studying the nature of the remaining canals and bunds and by studying the ruins of such works. When constructing very long wide canals like Jayaganga, constructors had to face the problems of various geographical conditions. When doing such constructions, extremely accurate measurement of the height of the land should be obtained from the beginning of the end of the canal. It is wonderful to learn that gradient or the sequence of about in inch per mile has been maintained within the first 17 miles of Jayaganga. This is a classic example which shows the expert knowledge in the ancient Sri Lankans had surveying the land. When constructing very long canals, various challenges such as digging the canals, maintaining the correct width and the depth, building up bunds to protect the bank from the erosion in places where the soil was loose, and constructing canals to suit variation in geographical conditions had to be confronted. R.L. Boyer in this great book entitled Irrigation System in Ancient Sri Lanka has described how such challenges had been overcome when constructing Alahara. At the constructing stage itself, measure had been taken to prevent the bank of the Alahara from being washed away from its overflows during the rainy season. As a lot, so you can see the R.L. Boyer. He is the person who have written about this irrigation system in ancient Sri Lanka, gives lot of information about constructing Alahara and how they have confronted the challenges, how it is measured, how they have built that. All the things were included in his book. So he is a very valuable person who gave information about the irrigation system in Sri Lanka. I hope you enjoyed my lesson. I did lesson 1.1. From the next video, I am going to do the lesson 1.2. Now, please write your comments. Those comments are very valuable for me. those comments encourage me to do more videos. And please like it. If you like the video, you can press the like button, and if you want to share also, you can do that. Thank you.